Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Again, my name is Lisa Lepore. I am with Questel. I'm a subject matter expert. Today, the topic is going to be monitoring your innovation ecosystem, and we're going to use a tool called Innosabi Insight. As I mentioned, the title of it is called Monitor Your Innovation Ecosystem. It's a webinar. We're going to talk about cross-analysis of technology, science, and business data. I also mentioned that my name is Lisa Lepore. I'm a subject matter expert at Questel, and I will lead today's session. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, little dashboard for GoToWebinar, and we'll try and answer them all at the end. If we don't have time to go through all of the questions, I'll come back to you later with detailed answers. The tool does collect those. The session is being recorded. You'll receive a link with access to the recording as well as a PDF version of the slides that I'm going to use today. And if you should have questions after the webinar, you can always contact our support team at help@questel.com. For this webinar, I'm going to walk you through a use case. I don't want you to think it's just going to be a series of slides. I will do a live demonstration of the tool. And the purpose of today's webinar is to study and analyze the network of players that are working on a topic of interest. This process, as well as the tool, can be used to identify potential new partners, monitor competitors, etc. So before we begin, let's talk about the importance of collaboration. There was an article published last year in the Journal of Technology Management and Innovation. It was entitled Characterization of Best Practices for Customer-Supplier Collaboration in Co-Invention Projects. It pointed out many of the benefits of partner collaborations, and there'll be a link to the article. You can see it's going to be down here on the lower right-hand side. There'll be a link to the article in the slides we're going to send you. And Benoit Chevalier, our European manager of subject matter experts, has summarized the article. So just a couple of points that the paper pointed out was collaboration requires coordinated activity across different parties to address a jointly defined problem with all partners contributing. So that's going to be key. The collaboration requires the explicit definition of common objectives. It may include agreement over the distribution of inputs, risks, and benefits. But ultimately, we believe that collaboration, along with customers, suppliers, partners, et cetera, can shorten the time to market. It can reduce costs, including those for development and production. And at least in theory, the products that are an output of this collaboration will be more innovative and higher quality. And then, as mentioned kind of in the darker section of this slide, there are some co-invention key success factors, not the least of which is trust. And if trust isn't a strong enough word, certainly contracts can supersede that. But there was also a concept that was discussed in the paper called absorption capacity. And that's the ability for a company or an entity to capture external information to use it internally for their benefit. So kind of what does all this mean? What all this means is why would you want to collaborate with a partner? So the issue here is that there's a combination of resources. So when multiple entities get together, whether it's two or it's more, there's a combination of resources such as knowledge, money, time, and technologies. There's also a set of diversity factors, including different cultures, different resources in terms of how things are allocated, certainly different competencies, and hopefully experiences, with an end goal to improve the product development cycle, the output of the collaboration, et cetera. All that is kind of generically wrapped up into a box called open innovation. And then, as I mentioned on the previous slide, trust is an aspect, as well as cultural compatibility, contractually defined outcomes, et cetera. And all this leads to something called co-innovation. And the theory here is that if you can leverage your customers or your suppliers or your partners' knowledge, money, time, technologies, it's knowledge, money, time, and technologies that you don't either have to have or utilize for this, and that you can utilize those factors to do something else. So leverage becomes kind of a key important part of this. In addition, something called the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. By the way, that's an intergovernmental economic organization with 38 member countries. They defined co-innovation by pointing out that, and I'm quoting here, collaboration requires coordinated activity across different parties to address a jointly defined problem with all partners contributing. Collaboration requires the explicit definition of objectives that are in common, may include agreement over the distribution of input risks and potential benefits, but collaboration creates new knowledge. It doesn't need to result in innovation. Each partner in a collaboration agreement can use the resulting knowledge for different purposes, and that's an end quote. According to this definition, collaboration does not necessarily result in innovation, but that same paper argues that when collaboration outcomes are innovative, it's called co-innovation. So that's kind of what our goal today is how to set up a situation or a system or a process where you can identify partners to co-innovate with. So why would you want to identify potential partners for collaboration? So the success depends on many factors per the paper. An initial factor widely studied in the literature and considered important was this concept of absorption capacity. That's the capacity or capability to capture, manage, and integrate external knowledge. So the ability to work with a partner, whether it's a supplier, customer, or an external party, can enable an open innovation environment. The goal, obviously, as mentioned, was to combine resources, et cetera, and create an innovative new solution, product, or service for the mutual benefit of all the connected parties. So how do you find those partners? And so at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to talk momentarily about innosabi Insight. So in a moment, after a few slides, I'm going to go actually into the tool and start to identify partners. But what I want to do is I want to give you the background for what you're going to see. So you're going to see real-time dashboards. And so these are designed to capture information about markets and opportunities in one place. So we have a unique data scope. We're capturing or cross-searching over 500 data sources, 50 types of documents in a single platform. We have smart search capability, which you're going to see in a moment, where you can build complex queries, although simple queries can be as effective. We're going to combine all the innovation markets into a single topic. We're going to have predefined dashboards, which saves you time and benefit. They include things such as sourcing and trends. We have the ability to export the data, create reports, whether they're in Excel or PowerPoint, et cetera. You can do your own analysis. You have a newsletter. We're actually going to show that in real time, including a competitive watch. It's a web application, so it's based on a software as a service model, and we do have APIs as well. So in summary, Insight is a web-based application that allows you to research and analyze the innovation activity of your future or current partners, suppliers, customers, competitors. It provides a comprehensive overview of a specific topic by screening and analyzing global R&D activities, including intellectual property, scientific papers, projects, et cetera, business content on a global scale, to provide you with the most recent and relevant insights. So Insight is based on the analysis of scientific works and patents, among other things. Our algorithms collect and analyze millions of scientific documents, peer-reviewed articles, conference proceedings, patents, projects, clinical trials, and web contents from all over the globe. The data is processed to generate structured dashboards, which are made up of graphs, trends, collaborative networks, metrics, and profiles of organizations, companies, universities, et cetera. We're going to focus today on collaborative networks. Insight also provides graphs and metrics with an interpretation based on the collected scientific information so that you can quickly understand the technology surrounding a specific topic. So let's talk about monitoring your innovation ecosystem using innosabi Insight. So this is my use case. So we're going to pretend today that I am the director of the innovation department of a company working on the development of a new treatment or treatments for asthma. I need to analyze the collaboration networks of organizations working on asthma in order to monitor the activity of my competitors, identify new partners, really the focus of today's webinar, or detect emerging players. That last bit about detecting emerging players also plays a role in identifying competitors and identifying new partners. The answer to the question of what I know and what I don't know and how I can gain insights. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a live demo of the tool. And the in-depth study of the collaboration networks of competitors or partners allows the emergence of high-level expertise and the detection of emerging strategies. As you would guess, collaboration has been a long tradition in research, so we're going to try and tease that out using the tool. It corresponds to a pooling of cultures, techniques, skills, and resources that have enriched practices and stimulates innovation. To remain innovative in the development of new products and processes within changing environments, organizations must be able to access external scientific and technological knowledge and expertise, basically sourcing new ideas and skills outside of their own fields. To do this, industrial and academic companies often adopt open innovation practices such as collaborative projects, partnerships, etc., and build relationships that enable them to create interactions at the local and international level. Mapping these collaborative networks, which you're going to see momentarily, through which scientific and technology is disseminated, makes it easier to identify which expertise you need, where it's located, and opens organizations to innovation opportunities. This is all thanks to the analysis of global knowledge networks. Companies can use this information to make more informed decisions. So today we're going to monitor your innovation ecosystem by using innosabi Insight to identify the networks of key players. So let's go out of this, and I'm going to take you over to the tool, which is here. So as I mentioned, we're going to go into a live demonstration of the tool. So the first step is to list your competitors and partners and bookmark them to create your ecosystem. This will allow us later on to focus on the networks easily and quickly. So in order to do that, I'm going to draw your attention to this bookmark tab up here on the upper right-hand side. It kind of looks like a building, maybe even with a front door out on a street. To find the company profiles, enter the names of the organizations that you're interested in and assign them a tag or a status. So with respect to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to type in AstraZeneca. So you're going to see as I've started to type Astra that there are a lot of companies that may fulfill that version or first part of the word. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to check off the one that has the HQ. This is actually the company that I'm looking for. So I'm going to add it to my bookmarks, and I'm going to do that by clicking here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to classify it either as a competitor, maybe it's my own company, or maybe it's somebody that I want to follow up with, but maybe it's just a partner. In this example, I'm going to tag it as a competitor, and the tool is going to flicker while it adds it. And then what I'd also like for you to notice is that I have other partners already identified. Those are universities. And then I've also identified myself as Roche. And so with that, the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to launch a search. In order to launch a search, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over into the search bar and I'm going to type the word asthma. I know that asthma is a very, very broad term, but in order to just kind of keep this at the highest level, as well as show you some of the capabilities of the tool, I've decided to just keep it very simple. You're going to notice that typing in the word asthma, I have an option to select more specific statements. And you can do that here by looking at all the options. If there's something that's more appropriate for your search, feel free to use those. And in this example, I'm going to click on asthma. As an aside, you're also going to see that we have a list of organizations which have the word asthma in the name of their company as well. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the word asthma. You're also going to notice that there's additional information. It's called add suggestions. So these are the kinds of things that that the tool has found by doing a broad search. And what it's doing is it's going to make some suggestions. So these are not necessarily synonyms. What I want you to know is that these are words and phrases that the tool often sees in addition to the word that you've typed in and selected. If any of these were potentially of interest, you can put those in, and in a Boolean sense, they come in as an or statement. I'm actually not going to select any of these for today's webinar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the go button. So now the tool is doing a search. Recall that it's a pretty broad topic. You're going to see that in this example, we have almost 77,000 inventions. I've got almost 300,000 scientific works, projects, clinical studies, over 2,000 organizations, a lot of people involved in the in asthma research, as well as a lot of web hits. So you can imagine that if you type the word asthma into a Google search bar, how many millions of hits you would get. So this is called, excuse me, the excuse me, the technology landscape dashboard. Basically what it's doing is it's aggregating the information, and these are the chunks of information in here. Some of the databases that we're pulling on include scientific works, projects, clinical studies, as you see, as well as patent databases. All of the information is coming in from different disparate geographies across the world. So the technology dashboard, it has a lot of information on it. You can see as I scroll down, there's a lot of charts. The charts are really designed to be actionable. As far as today's session, what we're going to focus on is the collaboration network. And recall that the webinar is on finding partners, collaborators, etc., who have an interest that's aligned to the word asthma, as well as somebody that you've done research on using the tool to potentially use as a partner. So the graph allows you to visualize the main scientific interactions between different academic players, as well as companies and agencies. The interactions can be based on co-publications, joint participation in projects or clinical trials, etc. So what you're going to see is a particularly dense collaboration network. So that kind of is the reason why we're showing it this way, is you can see that it would be very, very hard to work your way through this dense network without a mechanism or big data and the tools that come with big data to make sense of it. So this network will allow us to better understand the interaction between companies, universities, and agencies. It allows us to visualize the complex interactions with the technology space surrounding our query. And as I mentioned, it can be useful to zoom in and out on the graph. So what I'm going to do at this point is I am going to click on the shift button, and you're going to see that I am able. So you're going to see that I have the ability to scroll in and look at more detail in the graph itself. Wow. Okay, so I apologize, you guys. It looks like we might have had an issue with the audio. So basically, we're at a place now where we've got the collaboration network, and you're going to see that it's on the screen. And you're going to see, for instance, that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services certainly plays a central role in this network. You're also going to see that I have the ability to filter in. For those of you that missed part of it, recall that we're looking at a collaboration for the word asthma. Agreed, it's a very broad search. Each bubble, by the way, represents an entity, and by hovering over any of the bubbles, you're going to see that I have the ability to view the key collaborations within these organizations. You can also focus down on an entity by clicking into it. So for instance, I'm going to click into Health and Human Services. It allows us to focus on the key collaborators by clicking into the filtered selected modes. I can also click into here. I can also draw this around. So if I wanted to see with more visibility, some of the ones that are kind of obscured by the lines, I can do that as well. And then I can also notice how many collaborations they have. So with a particularly dense graph like this one, you can isolate one or more organizations by using the filters on your right. So you're going to see that on the right, I have the ability to click into some filters. This allows you to target a particular type of organization, be it company or an academic institution. You can also notice that we can refine the results either by a specific time range or maybe by a specific geographic region. And this is helpful because it'll limit the set of publications, for example, or a particular type of collaboration. There's also a search bar. I don't know if you can see it. It's rather faint. It's on the upper left-hand side. And so what we're going to do is we're going to type in a company. I've typed in Roche. So now what I can do is I can click on Roche, and you're going to see that it has a relationship with HHS, and it also has its own sort of network as well. So this is useful if you wanted to kind of focus in or hone in on a particular company of interest. And then I can zoom into its own collaboration network for further analysis. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset my filters. And by doing that, you're going to notice I've also got plus signs over here. So if I wanted to focus in or I wanted to focus out, I can do that as well. I've also got the ability to drag it all the way down to kind of when we first started. Maybe that's a little too far, but you can see that there's a fair amount of information in here as well. I also have the ability to export the chart to whatever extent that you wanted to use that in a presentation. You can do that as well. So obviously, in order to study the network of competitors or partners, especially in depth, the collaboration networks allow you to identify the high-level poles of expertise and to detect emerging strategies. So if you wanted to see who your competitors are working on within your topic, you can use the company's filters. So I'm going to go over here. You're going to notice that there's a series of filters over here on the lower right-hand side, and one of them is on companies. I can open this, and you're going to see that I've got the difference between larger companies and smaller companies. And for the purpose of my filter, I'm going to go ahead and click into companies. So this is resetting the graph. You're going to see that it's about to flicker and allows you to display only the collaboration of companies that could turn out to be potentially your competitors or maybe your partners, etc. So I'll give that a chance to load. And you're going to see that once again, we've got a pretty complex chart here. So as before, I can scroll into it and see kind of more information. As before, I can hover over any particular bubble. I can zoom in on that bubble. I can also click into it to see the numbers of relationships that they have with other companies. If you've already identified your competitors or partners and you've bookmarked them in that entity I mentioned at the beginning, which is up here, it's kind of a little office building with kind of a door on Main Street, you can use the filters that are associated with those bookmarks. So you're going to see down here, I have the ability to click into those. This allows you to easily and quickly visualize the main partners your competitors are collaborating with on a topic such as asthma. Excuse me. You can, of course, do the same thing with your partners, which can allow you in both cases to identify new players who may have expertise. But at the same time, what it's also doing is it's giving you insights into who they're already working with. And that can be just as valuable from a competitive information standpoint, in addition to identifying who you might be partnering with. Another filter that might be useful to point out is a publication date. So what you're going to notice is up here, I have the ability to refine by the last 5 years. So you're going to see that once again, the chart is applying that filter. And you're going to see that there's not a lot of information with respect to that. A lot of information, meaning it's not nearly as dense, but you're also going to notice that I had already clicked on Merck. So maybe at this point, what I'd like to do is just kind of reset it, and you're going to see that I can do that. I can drag it down, and now I get all of the players, the companies, if you will, who have collaborations in the last 5 years. And likewise, what I can do is I can also click into geographic regions, etc. So it also allows you to access the details of the collaborations. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to find, let's see if I can do that. I am going to try and find AstraZeneca on this chart. So I'm going to type AstraZeneca and I'm going to go here, and you're going to see that they have a lot of connections. And then what I'd like to see is it looks like they have a fair number of connections with Amgen. So I'd like to see more information potentially about the relationships between AstraZeneca and Amgen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and come on. And it's going to give me more information. So one of the things that you're going to notice is that I clicked on the number 5 and now it's showing the number 8. Recall that when I was clicking into the number 5, I had activated a series of filters. So one of the filters was on a publication date, one of them was on competitors. So now at this point, it's broken it further down, but it's undone those filters. So I have 8 total collaborations. You know that because up here on the upper left-hand side, you're going to see that I have a breadcrumb trail that's showing that I've clicked into collaboration networks, and now I've drilled into the collaborations between Amgen and AstraZeneca. And there are a total of 8 beyond even the 5 years. So you'll see here that the collaboration Amgen and AstraZeneca has co-published 4 publications on scientific works. You're also going to see that they've been involved in 4 clinical trials together on asthma. And of course, you have information on this as well. So if I click in, you're going to see those scientific works where they collaborated together. And as you would expect, you can click into one of those, any one of those, and you can get more information, and you're going to see that that's where the information is. And so it gives you the ability to drill into a lot of detail about their collaborations. I'm going to take my breadcrumb trail back. You're going to see that I can go back to just the overarching relationship, if you will, between Amgen and AstraZeneca. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to show you is there are additional collaborations that are not on the search. So notice up here at the top in orange, it says collaborations based on your search. And so these are the 8. If I scroll further down, you're going to see that in general, as kind of a sweeping generalization, not related to the query, there's a total of 77 collaborations between Amgen and AstraZeneca. And this comes under the general heading of all collaborations. So that can be interesting as well, because what it does is it gives you insight into the other things that they're working on together. The other thing that you can do is if you wanted, you could click into the title of the company directly. So you can access an organization's profile at any time from the list in the graphic. By clicking on the organization, you're going to notice that it opens up an entity card. The entity card has a series of, or a collection of tabs with different information in them. The why tab is singularly important. And the reason why is because the why is, why did this company show up in a query related to asthma? So this section right here are all the entries for these 6 metrics that we've accumulated as to why this company shows up. So for instance, experience is how long they've been working on asthma. Have they been recently working on it? Kind of think about in the last 4 years. Do they have a network surrounding asthma? Do they have patents surrounding asthma, scientific activity, which would include journal articles, conference proceedings, projects, clinical studies, etc., as well as are they talking about it on their website? So this section right here is particularly pertinent for what they're doing in this space. You can also click into one of these subtopics here. So you're going to notice as it's loading, we're looking into Amgen specifically on asthma, and this is their patenting activity on the topic, which in this case is asthma. You can see that it's kind of gone down through the years, but you can still click into it. They have 345 inventions, just as before, just as you would expect. You can refine it by application date or publication date. You can only see North American ones if that's what you wanted, etc. By going into custom, you can refine it further into the individual countries within these regions. And if you only wanted to see the ones that were alive via legal status, you can click into that as well. So this section is crucial as it tells you why the entity showed up in the search results and why it's relevant for your search. So I'm going to take my breadcrumb trail back. I'm going to actually go all the way back to my collaboration agreement, or collaboration network, I should have said. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect my filters. So with that, as I scroll down, you're going to notice that I want to undo the all, and the chart is updating. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to study the collaboration network of academic entities on the topic. And the reason why is because if you want to develop maybe a technological innovation or maybe answer specific problems or questions, laboratories can be an essential partner. So as before, we've got that really complex graph. As you would, expect, we can hone in on it. We can scroll over here. So with respect to research laboratories, they can help remove technology-specific barriers, give you access to state-of-the-art equipment. Sometimes that equipment is hard to get and or it's very expensive. So some companies have a history of working with the best academic research partners, such as institutions, universities, et cetera, within the world to develop a technology program that's the most advanced as far as ideas, access to skills and tools that are not necessarily available within their company or even generically. This allows them to share risks and to provide specific support. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click out of companies. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to instead click into academics. So with that, the tool is going to update and it's going to give us the relationships between the different academic partners. So if you wanted to study the collaborations of the main academic players working on your topic, I've applied the academics filter. You can also use, as I mentioned earlier, the countries filter to target a geographical area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into North America, and you're going to see that it's going to update. This is going to focus on collaborations from the North American universities. And I'm going to let it load. And then what I'm going to do is, and as you probably recall, we're manipulating thousands and thousands of records, literally tens of thousands of records. I'm going to click into the last 5 years as well. So now what we've done is we're looking at academic universities that are in North America, their collaborations within the last 5 years. And you're going to notice that once again, I've gotten a chart and I can focus in on it either by using the plus sign, I can use the drag and drop, or I can hold my shift key down and I can use my scroll bar. So we can see that even here, as faint as it is, the University of California at San Francisco is one of the key academic networks or collaborators within the network. And you're also going to notice, even by just kind of scrolling it around so that you can kind of see who's in this space, you're going to notice that they have partnerships or collaborations within many sort of sectors geographically within the world. So the list isn't filtered to just North America, it's just North American universities. So you're going to notice that they have collaborations, including with Sweden, Japan, the UK, et cetera. And by clicking into that node, it'll show the number of collaborations they've had within the last 5 years. So we can still clearly see that the US Department of Health and Human Services has a lot of co-publications and joint participations. And remember from before when we very first loaded the chart without any filters, we had a fair amount of HHS collaborations already in place. And so that's also the case with UCSF. But you're also going to notice, for instance, that they have other collaborations as well. So if, for instance, you were curious about Pitt, you can click into Pitt, and then you're going to see that their collaboration network has the same entities as well, the same outlines as before. And keep in mind that the number on the graph corresponds to the publications within the past 5 years. The analysis of these works can allow you to identify particular layers of expertise. So what I'd like to show you now is to summarize the collaboration network. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of these filters. I'm going to click into all, I'm going to click into worldwide, and I'm going to unselect the academic ones here and give it a chance to load. And we're back kind of at the main chart. So to summarize, the collaboration network gives you an overview of the network of collaborations that the main players have when they're working on asthma. It also allows you to identify quickly and easily the network players that are formed around a topic of interest, which in our case was asthma. And as before, I'm going to kind of make this a little bit easier to read. So, and I can drag it and drop it just as before. And I can Also, I can filter on selected nodes here. You're going to recall that I could search on companies up here on the upper left as well. It allows you to see if your competitors or partners are working on your topic and allow you to access their expertise as well as to see with whom they are working. You're also going to see who they have the most connections with. So in order to monitor your ecosystem, the last thing I'd like to show you are newsletters, which give you the opportunity to monitor the activity of new players you've identified, maybe competitors that you're interested in, etc. In order to get to the newsletters, it's up here in the upper right-hand side. It kind of looks like an envelope. So I've clicked into it. Let's begin in the section called Monitor Companies. So you're going to see that I've already gotten a list in my most recent news insight feed, which was on Tuesday. I also have the ability here to go backwards in time to see other newsletters. In order to create a newsletter, I'm going to click into the little gear icon. I have the opportunity to decide what kind of information I'm interested in, how often I'd like to get a newsletter. If there are companies that I'm interested, I can either click on them from my Insight feed. These are the ones I already am getting a newsletter on, but you're going to notice that these are the ones that are coming in from my bookmarks, and you see that here. So I can add those to my newsletter here if I wanted to, and then I will get a newsletter, and I have it automatically selected as weekly here. And then if I come down here, I can click OK. And then when my newsletter comes in next Tuesday, I'll have information on them. And it's the information about their patents, their scientific activity, the latest news, buzz that they're talking about, etc. So you see that. In addition, I also have the ability to monitor a search. It's very functionally similar to how we set up the one for companies. You're going to see as it's loading, I have the ability here to go backwards in time to other newsletters. You're going to see that I get information or insights. This is one of the queries that I'm getting a newsletter on. And then if I scroll down, you're going to see if there's been updates in the who's in the space, the competitive landscape, who's patenting. You're going to see that in this case, Nicotine Patch had 3 inventions that published since last week, who the key IP players are, if new people have come in, etc. And so if I scroll all the way to the top on the upper right, I have a gear button. You're going to see that. And just as before, I have the ability to decide what kind of information I want and whether or not I want to update it and get an update on my newest query on asthma. I scroll down and I can click OK. So I've created newsletters to monitor the activity of the players I've identified. I can launch a technology watch to detect new emerging players. I've created a newsletter. There's 2 different types of newsletters. There's one that's on monitoring organizations, get updates on their latest collaborations and activities. I can also get a newsletter to monitor a query and get information about the players and their research topics. And then as I showed you, you can also create newsletters with respect to certain pieces of information, whether it's news, corporate activity, patents, networks, scientific activity. You can decide how often you want to receive your newsletter, and then finally merely select the companies and organizations you want to follow. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return you back to the PowerPoint. And let's go back here. I'm going to put it in full screen mode. So I've shown you how to do the query, how to click into the collaboration networks, how to click into an entity, how to search the entity up in the upper left-hand side. You recall that we clicked on Roche. We can decide just to look at those we've already tagged in our bookmarks. We can decide that we only want to look at companies. We clicked into some universities and different companies. We saw how many collaborations. We can click on the clinical trials or whatever aspect of it is of interest to us. We studied the collaboration network of entities with respect to our topic. If you wanted to develop an innovation network or identify who might be of interest with respect to academic partners, they can help. We also studied the network on our topic, which was asthma, refined it into companies, and finally, in summary. So as the webinar is coming to an end, to conclude, let's summarize what we've done. We created our own ecosystem, we bookmark our competitors and partners, we developed a search strategy, we entered keywords corresponding to a topic, We accessed a global view of networks between companies, universities, et cetera. We navigated within the network to understand who's working with whom. We've seen how to use filters to study the network of our competitors or partners. And then we dove into the details of the network and we had access to those co-publications. And then we saw how to stay up to date on your ecosystem. And then all this information can be used to identify potential partners and then allow you to access them with respect to their suitability for your needs. So with that, the webinar has come to an end. And now it's your turn to use Innosabi Insight. As always, if you would like further assistance, you can contact our help desk. Or if you're not a user, feel free to ask for a personalized demo from help@questel.com. And thank you for your time.